The INFJ stare is one of the most mysterious and captivating qualities of INFJs. To those who have experienced it, the look can feel both penetrating and unsettling, as if the INFJ can see straight through the walls people put up to guard themselves. It is not a casual glance or a fleeting look of curiosity. Rather, it carries a weight and depth that lingers in the air long after the moment passes. Many describe it as intense, magnetic, and at times unnerving, because it is not just the surface that the INFJ is looking at. They're searching for meaning, truth, and the hidden layers that make a person who they are. The INFJ stare is not born out of judgment, but out of profound perception. INFJs are natural observers of human behavior, and their intuitive abilities push them to look deeper than most people dare. When they fix their gaze on someone, it often feels like they are peeling back the layers of the soul, seeking the essence that lies beneath the masks and facades. The intensity of their eyes communicates that they are not just noticing you. They are understanding you, often in ways you might not even understand yourself. This is why people sometimes feel exposed under the INFJ stare, as though their private thoughts and vulnerabilities have been gently uncovered without them saying a word. The stare often happens when an INFJ is lost in thought or is silently analyzing a situation. They may not even be aware of how piercing their gaze has become. Their eyes tend to linger longer than most people's, not in a predatory or threatening way, but in a manner that conveys focus and concentration. It's as though they are studying not just the physical expressions, but the emotional resonance behind them. This ability to read between the lines is part of why INFJs are often described as empaths with uncanny insight into others. People may feel both flattered and intimidated, because being truly seen is something we all crave, yet it can also feel uncomfortable when our defenses are bypassed so easily. If you want to truly understand yourself and unlock your full potential as an INFJ, check out the INFJ Mastery course today. The link is in the description of this video. In relationships, the INFJ stare becomes even more powerful. When they look at someone they care about, their gaze softens but retains its depth. It becomes a look of profound connection, like an unspoken promise that they are present, loyal, and fully attuned. Their eyes communicate love, empathy, and sincerity in a way that words sometimes cannot. Partners of INFJs often remark that a single look can make them feel cherished and understood more than any elaborate declaration ever could. Yet in the same breath, that look can also demand truth and honesty. It can challenge a loved one to be authentic, because the INFJ gaze leaves little room for pretenses. On the flip side, when an INFJ feels hurt, betrayed, or disillusioned, the stare can transform into something chilling. It loses its warmth and becomes distant, detached, almost like a silent verdict. The same eyes that once conveyed deep compassion can suddenly feel like a mirror reflecting cold disappointment. This shift can be devastating for the person on the receiving end, as they realize they have lost the INFJ's trust and emotional presence. In these moments, the stare becomes a boundary, a way of silently declaring that the INFJ has withdrawn their energy from the relationship. In social contexts, the INFJ stare often catches people off guard. In a crowded room, an INFJ may lock eyes with someone and seem to hold their gaze longer than expected. To some, it feels like an invitation to connect. To others, it feels intimidating, as though their hidden motives or insecurities are being read without permission. This is part of what makes INFJs seem enigmatic. People cannot easily decide whether the stare is comforting or unsettling. It often depends on what the INFJ themselves is feeling and perceiving in that moment. Beyond personal interactions, the INFJ stare is also a reflection of their inner world. Because they live so much of their lives in deep thought, their eyes naturally take on a contemplative, searching quality. They are dreamers, visionaries, and healers, and their gaze often reflects the quiet intensity of a mind constantly weaving patterns, seeking purpose, and wrestling with truths others may overlook. Even when they are silent, their eyes often speak volumes, conveying emotions and insights that they might never put into words. What makes the INFJ stare so distinct is its duality. It can be profoundly comforting, making someone feel seen, valued, and understood on a level they never thought possible. Yet it can also be intimidating, stirring a sense of vulnerability or even unease. That paradox is the essence of the INFJ gaze. It reveals the rare ability to perceive both the light and the shadow within people, and to acknowledge both without judgment. It is a stare that whispers, "I see you." And for many, being truly seen in such a way can be both a gift and a challenge. The INFJ stare is not just about the eyes. It is about the presence behind them. It is about an energy that lingers in the air, drawing people in with equal parts mystery and magnetism. Another fascinating aspect of the INFJ stare is how it often functions as a silent form of communication. While most people rely heavily on words to express what they think or feel, INFJs frequently allow their gaze to do much of the talking. In moments of tension or uncertainty, a single look from them can convey reassurance, disapproval, or even a challenge, all without uttering a word. This quiet language of the eyes reflects their natural preference for depth and subtlety over surface-level chatter. Those who know INFJs will learn to read these silent cues, almost as if they're speaking an unspoken dialect that only the closest people to them can understand. The INFJ stare also carries a visionary quality. Because INFJs are future-oriented and deeply idealistic, their gaze often looks as though it's resting on something beyond the present moment. It's not uncommon for others to describe their eyes as distant or dreamy, even when they are physically present in a room. This stems from the INFJ's inner world constantly mapping possibilities, analyzing deeper meanings, or contemplating existential questions. When caught in one of these stares, it can feel as though they're seeing something invisible, gazing into a horizon that no one else can quite perceive. This gives them an almost mystical aura, as if they hold secrets about life and destiny that they rarely choose to share. The INFJ stare blends empathy with discernment. Unlike a cold or clinical gaze that seeks only to assess, the INFJ's eyes often soften with compassion even as they study someone. They do not just read people, they feel them. Their stare can simultaneously carry curiosity and kindness, which makes others feel oddly safe even while they're being deeply observed. This is why so many people are quick to confide in INFJs. The eyes give away a silent message that says, "You are safe with me. I will not judge you." Yet at the same time, there is an underlying sharpness that tells you they will notice the cracks, the contradictions, and the truths hidden in the shadows. It can also create a sense of magnetism that draws people in without the INFJ intending it. In social gatherings, many find themselves inexplicably drawn to the quiet observer in the corner whose eyes seem to be taking in everything. This quiet intensity makes INFJs stand out without them even trying. The paradox is that many INFJs dislike being in the spotlight, yet their stare often pulls attention toward them because it resonates with an authenticity and focus that is rare in a world of superficial glances. The stare can also shift depending on the INFJ's emotional state. When they are inspired or excited, their gaze radiates warmth, curiosity, and even a spark of playfulness, making them magnetic and engaging. When they are reflective or in pain, their stare grows heavier, carrying the weight of unspoken emotions that hint at deep inner battles. To those who pay attention, the INFJ's eyes can become a window not only into others but into themselves, quietly revealing what words cannot. This transparency, though subtle, often makes them both intriguing and vulnerable at the same time. It is worth noting how cultural and social contexts amplify the power of the INFJ stare. In professional settings, for example, their gaze can carry authority without aggression. Colleagues may feel both respected and held accountable under that watchful intensity, as though the INFJ expects integrity and honesty without ever needing to say it out loud. In creative or spiritual environments, their stare can feel like a source of inspiration, as though they're holding space for ideas and visions larger than themselves. What truly makes the INFJ stare unforgettable, however, is its ability to linger in the minds of those who encounter it. Long after a conversation ends, people often recall the feeling of being looked at so deeply, as though something within them had been gently touched. This after effect is what sets the INFJ apart. Their gaze leaves an imprint, reminding others of a rare moment when someone truly sought to understand them without agenda, without pretenses, and without fear. There is also a quiet therapeutic power in the INFJ stare that often goes unnoticed until someone reflects on how it made them feel. Many people walk through life unseen, their emotions dismissed or trivialized. But when an INFJ fixes their eyes on you, there's this uncanny sense that your pain, your struggles, and even your joys are being honored. The intensity of their gaze validates emotions that may have been silenced elsewhere. People who have endured loneliness or rejection often find themselves deeply moved by this, sometimes even to tears, because they realize in that moment they are being acknowledged at a profound human level. The stare can be disruptive, in both subtle and transformative ways. An INFJ's ability to hold someone's gaze with such unwavering depth can cause others to question themselves. It is not uncommon for someone to feel compelled to speak more honestly, or to wrestle with their own hidden truths when they catch that look. The INFJ does not demand vulnerability directly, yet their stare naturally unearths it, as though it creates a mirror in which people can no longer hide from themselves. This makes their gaze both healing and confrontational, depending on what truths the other person has been avoiding. Whereas many people use silence as an awkward pause, INFJs fill it with presence. Their eyes during these moments can communicate volumes, comfort, curiosity, challenge, or even quiet sorrow, without the need for words. This makes conversations with INFJs feel less like exchanges of information and more like soul-level dialogues where the spoken and unspoken merge. The stare becomes the bridge between what is said and what is truly meant, often making the interaction unforgettable. The INFJ stare is adaptable. It can be soft, disarming, and tender when they want to reassure a child, a close friend, or a partner. At the same time, it can harden into something resolute when they sense dishonesty, manipulation, or injustice. Unlike a glare fueled by anger, the INFJ's sharper stare carries moral weight. It speaks of principles, of a line that should not be crossed. This unyielding energy often catches wrongdoers off guard because it is not loud or dramatic, but it communicates an unmistakable certainty that the INFJ will not be swayed. In creative or visionary moments, their stare can transform into something almost luminous. When an INFJ is discussing a dream, an idea, or a mission that stirs their soul, their eyes light up with a glow that seems to reach beyond the present. People often describe this look as inspiring, almost contagious, because it ignites curiosity and hope in those around them. Their eyes, in those instances, reveal the fire of someone who sees a better world and longs to bring it to life. Their gaze can shift seamlessly between being inward-focused and outward-focused. Sometimes, the INFJ stare is not directed at people, but seems to pierce into the unseen realms of thought and intuition. Observers might notice them staring off into space with that same intensity, as though they are deciphering patterns invisible to everyone else. In those moments, their eyes are fixed on inner landscapes, processing, connecting, and envisioning. When they return their focus to others, it can feel like they just traveled miles in their mind and brought back wisdom. There is a magnetic stillness in the INFJ stare that sets it apart from ordinary eye contact. When they fix their gaze, time can seem to slow down, as if the noise of the world fades into the background. People often describe feeling momentarily suspended in that look, like being drawn into a quiet dimension where only authenticity exists. This stillness is part of what makes the stare unforgettable. It is not rushed, distracted, or shallow, but grounded in the kind of presence most people rarely experience. INFJs are naturally attuned to subtle shifts in body language, tone, and energy, but their eyes often serve as the primary channel through which they absorb these signals. The gaze is not just visual. It is almost energetic, as if they're scanning the emotional frequency of the person before them. This is why an INFJ can often sense unspoken tension or hidden sadness that others miss. Their stare doesn't just look, it perceives, it listens, it reads. Their stare can create an atmosphere of intimacy that feels unusually deep, even in casual conversations. A coworker might feel as though they are being treated with unusual seriousness, or a friend may feel as if their words carry far more weight than usual. This effect can make ordinary exchanges with INFJs feel profound, as if layers of meaning are unfolding beneath the surface. For many, it is an addictive quality. Once they have felt that kind of attention, they begin to crave it, because it is so rare in a world where people are often distracted and shallow. The INFJ stare also has a protective quality, particularly when directed toward people they care about. In moments where a loved one is in danger, distress, or under threat, their eyes can harden into an almost shield-like intensity. Without saying anything, they project a silent warning to anyone who might harm or disrespect the person under their care. What makes this powerful is that INFJs often appear soft-spoken or reserved. So when their gaze suddenly becomes steely and immovable, it shocks those who underestimated their inner strength. Because INFJs are naturally intuitive, they sometimes look at people as if they can see not just who they are, but who they are becoming. This forward-reaching gaze can feel mystical, as if the INFJ is glimpsing the person's potential or path before it has even unfolded. Those who receive this look sometimes sense they're being called to a higher standard or reminded of what they are capable of becoming. It is a gaze that inspires growth, even if it is not consciously intended. At times, the INFJ eyes are full of warmth and understanding, but at the same moment, they carry a heaviness, as though they are bearing the weight of the world. This duality can be unsettling. How can someone look so compassionate yet so burdened at once? But that is the essence of the INFJ. They feel deeply, not just for themselves, but for others, for humanity, and even for unseen struggles. Their gaze reflects this layered complexity, simultaneously soothing and sobering. When INFJs are in solitude, their stare often turns inward, and if someone happens to catch it, it can look haunting. They may appear as if they're staring through walls, lost in a labyrinth of thoughts, memories, or visions. To the outside world, it may seem like they're simply spacing out, but in reality, they are processing vast amounts of information, piecing together insights, wrestling with questions, or searching for clarity. Their eyes, in those moments, are the visible trace of an active inner universe. INFJs do not set out to intimidate, enchant, or unsettle people with their stare. It is simply a byproduct of how intensely they live in the realms of empathy, intuition, and depth. The power of the gaze lies not in performance, but in authenticity. It is the natural outflow of a personality wired to seek truth, to feel deeply, and to connect beyond the surface. If you want to truly understand yourself and unlock your full potential as an INFJ, check out the INFJ Mastery course today. The link is in the description of this video.